So now we have our bed completely unwrapped, and what I did is the underside of the blanket that kind of goes over, I placed it right here. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to sort of create a shadow template that we're going to paint our texture off of, and that's called an ambient occlusion pass. So we're going to do that I'm going to show you how to do that two ways. I'll show you one way now and then another way later. I'm going to go up to my pull down here and make sure that it's on rendering. Then I'm going to go to lighting and shading. I'm going to go under batch baked metal ray and I'm going to click the options box here. And what this allows us to do is sort of select different baking options. So that's why it's meant bake options. And one of them is called ambient occlusion, which allows us to take the shadows or perceived shadows from within the scene. So for example, areas like this blanket that are kind of covering the mattress would sort of have a shadow underneath it, or where this pillow is touching here would have a shadow. So let's go ahead and set it up. Now having these shadows already baked out for us will save us a lot of time from having to hand paint them. So we're going to go ahead from the top and just do use bake set override. Under color mode, we're going to select the occlusion. Occlusion raise is 64. I'm going to go ahead and change these to 1024 by 1024. And the file format's going to be JPEG. Now, the way this works is wherever you set your project to, so for example, mine is just set to documents, my projects. I'm going to go ahead and set it to my documents folder, and then I'm going to make a new folder in here called bed. And I'm going to set my project there and allow it to create a default workspace. Now that I set up that project inside that bed folder, it's going to allow me to go ahead and when I hit convert, it's going to bake out this occlusion pass into that folder. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit convert. I'm going to pause the video now and allow it to finish. Now that it's finished baking, what you'll notice is it Maya went ahead and applied that ambient occlusion shader. What I'm going to do is double click this edge really quick and harden it as well. It seems like I forgot to do that last time, so that it gets rid of some of that discoloration. Do the same thing to this side and just hit G. You'll see it'll kind of clarify that area. It could also be the reason why there's a little bit of artifacting in my AO. Okay. I'll do the same for the top here. And again, hardening edges transfers over to the game engine. So there's a couple of things here. What you'll notice is, as I move this up, what the ambient occlusion did is it baked the texture of the shadows out into a separate file. So you might be wondering, where is that file? Because if you're following along, you'll notice that it automatically applied the AO to your bed. Well, in the documents folder where I baked out, where I set my project to, you'll see I have the bed folder. Within that folder, created an object called render data. Inside that folder, there's another one called malware. And under light mapping, you'll notice that's where it baked out my AO. I'm just going to right click and cut that. And I'm going to go all the way out. I'm just going to paste it here. Then I'm going to delete that render data folder. I actually don't need it at this point. I'm going to right click this folder and rename it. I'm sorry, this file, and rename it diffuse. Now this file is what I'm going to actually do to create my diffuse map, or my color map for my bed. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to right click on the bed and assign a new material. I'm going to make it a blend. And to get to the highest level, I'm going to hit Control A. I'm going to name this bed underscore texture. So again, I'm going to right click, go to material attributes. You can see that it's going to make sure it's named here as well, bed texture. And under color, I'm going to navigate to that folder. So I clicked on color here, and I'm going to select file. And because I set the project there, it's automatically going to take me to that bed folder. I'm going to select diffuse and hit open. And you can see that it applied that that ambient occlusion map. Now something that you might have noticed is that this leg is sort of discolored. And the reason is, if you remember early on when we were unwrapping, because we knew that these were going to be exactly the same, we went ahead and unwrapped this leg by itself. So what I'm going to do here is double click this and just sort of delete it. And then I'm going to double click each one of these, holding shift to do this. And then I'm going to shift right click and go down to duplicate faces. Now what that gave me is 3 new objects. Let's go ahead and center pivot on them. You can see they're just copies, and the UVs of these are laid exactly on top of these. I'm just going to look at the bottom and sort of line it up with the hole that was there before. Then I'm going to shift select my bed, and I'm going to combine all of those together. Okay. Now what I want to do at this point is I want to talk a little bit about how to texture our bed using the traditional method, the non-painting on a 3D object way. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, but when I come back I'll have Photoshop open, and I'll open that ambient occlusion texture that we need to diffuse. Okay, so I want to take a look at a couple things when it comes to texturing my bed. In another tab I have the actual reference image of the bed open. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something just called a color comp. And what that allows me to do is I'm going to lay out the basic colors of what I think my bed should look like. Okay, and I'm not applying textures yet, so I'm just going to hit G and hold Alt. And under this diffusion area, I'm going to make a new texture above a new layer. Double click my ambient occlusion to release the lock above. So now I have 2 layers. This ambient occlusion layer is going to be, again, it's just sort of going to drive our shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and select multiply here. And what that allows me to do is in areas like the headboard, for example, I can fill it, and it fills everything with a similar brown color. So I'm going to hit B here so you can kind of look at it. And I'm just going to name this layer flats. Okay, I'm going to jump back here. For the mattress, I'm going to select a color that sort of represents that mattress. I'm just going to paint that in underneath. Now, again, for this area, which is my base, it's the same exact wood, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to sample this red here. I'm going to go ahead and paint in the little blanket that's on top. Okay, something like that. Let me go ahead and fix up some of that area on the frame. Now the legs themselves are also brown, but they have a silver texture for this part here, or this part rather. So I'm going to go back and select a little bit of that gray, that dark gray. And then I'm going to go ahead and do File, Save As. And just go ahead and save off a PSD called bed _ diffuse. And I'm going to do File, Save As. And I'm going to save off a target called bed _ diffuse. Alright, now I'm going to jump back into Maya, go to Material Attributes, and I'm going to go find that diffuse, bed diffuse, targa, and I'm going to hit open. And it looks like I forgot to paint the pillow as well, and the pillow itself is a similar color, same style. So I'm just going to sample this, paint in the top of the pillow, then a little bit of the bottom. Let me go ahead and do Save, and then File, Save As, select Targa, select Bed Diffuse, hit OK. In order to get it to update in Maya, I have to hit Reload. see it reloaded that texture. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at using a 3D feature to paint our bed inside of Photoshop.